Off with their heads. Man, it is so great to see Canute once more. This is just something that really makes me smile. Now, I know that this chapter probably was a little bit of fan service, just bringing Canute back for a chapter, but you know what? I'm a fan, and I like to be serviced in many different ways. But it was nice to see him once again, and I thought it was really funny that Yukimura put out a tweet a couple of days ago where he said that he forgot to draw the beard on Canute, which is pretty funny considering it's his own character and character design, but it's been a long time since Canute's been around, so just kind of humorous that he would actually forget to draw the beard on him. Now, this chapter was a fun kind of like little segment. I'm not really too stoked about the chapter overall, like the overall just resolution of it, but I really like sort of the idea that's being presented here, and probably something that's going to continue moving forward in that way. And basically what we have here is Atheist Thorfinn. Which is great. Atheist Thorfinn is here. I don't know what Thorfinn truly believes or anything, but I like that he's calling into question and the evidence of the Norse, religions and mythology of going into Valhalla, going out in a blaze of glory within battle. That's the only way to get there, to become a warrior in God's army. Basically, all of these prophecies and ideologies and religions and stuff like that, telling people exactly, the end of times, the end days are coming, prepare for this, do that. It's in pretty much like every single religion. I'm not going to make this video like a religion thing, but I mean, I could, but I'm not going to. Which is also funny because Canute is heavily Christian, so he's there kind of listening and laughing to the ideas of the Norse religion, but then at the same time not thinking about his own, and its own also has these prophecies of end of days, and this is going to happen, and yada yada, and if you do this, you'll get to a good place when you die. If you do that, you'll go to a bad place when you die, and it's all kind of in there. But I don't think that the chapter is really trying to poke fun at the idea of a religion. I think it's just saying, you are blindly following this thing without, circumstantial evidence of what's happening. And Thorfinn's basically just saying that because he's never been somebody who even ever cared about Valhalla or Ragnarok or the end of days or anything like that. He was forced into war as a small child. He never really got a chance to really think about it. And I don't really think Askeladd's band was really like too all about it either. I mean, I know they were just like culturally, it's just sort of something that is known, but it's not like they were going out and knocking on doors and everything and saying, hey, have you heard of our Lord and Savior Odin? I'm pretty sure that wasn't happening in between all of their missions that they were paid for. But regardless, this chapter does show us what happened to a little bit of the Joms Vikings after they were disbanded at the end of the Baltic Sea arc, which is something that I was very curious about. And apparently, some of them, these are people that have grown, been raised, been indoctrinated, and understood that basically war is life. This is the kind of life that they're living, and they don't really know anything else. They've always made their living by fighting, got their thrills by fighting, got their sense of fulfillment by fighting. So you're living within a world and within basically a culture, not even just like the religious aspect of it, but just the culture of the world at the time where they were. That's sort of what you lived and breathed. So somebody telling you to disband and not do that would make as much sense as somebody telling you, stop taking showers and stop wearing clothing. And it's just like, at this point, it's so engraved in us. It's like, what are you talking about? Why would we not do that? And then it shows us that basically some of those Joms Vikings went and became pirates because that is a way they could still make a living their own way, illegally, but doing it in a way that where they could still battle and they could still get the riches they wanted. They could still live that sense of thrill and excitement, and that sort of idea of conquering, but you're not really conquering anything, if you're just robbing people essentially. But, it's sort of like the only outlet they could come up with. And I totally get that. And that makes sense. And this, I should also mention this chapter takes place 2 years prior, I believe it said in the beginning. So Thorfinn has yet to leave for Vinland during this chapter, and they go to rob a ship, and they're surrounded by Canute's fleet, and then sentenced to be beheaded by Canute himself, standing there and not taking to that shit whatsoever. And the really interesting thing about that too is I like the opposing ideologies between Thorfinn and Canute, because they both want to create a world of peace, but they're doing it in insanely different ways. Whereas Canute is basically, he's the king of Denmark, right? And so he wants to become this ultimate ruler so that everybody is underneath his leadership. And then by doing that, he is eliminating everybody conflicting and fighting with one another, basically like unifying the world under his rule, and anybody that disobeys him is fucking killed. And so that's sort of like how he's doing it in this sort of like I keep using the word conquering, but that is kind of like what exactly this is doing, is that he's becoming this ultimate king, which is, I'm sure subtly still a quest for power, because that's just sort of like engraved, within mankind, and then also within like the line of royalty and whatnot. But he's already, has enough visions of like the haunting of the throne and stuff. Ultimately, what he's trying to do is end the madness that is around him. But the only way he can feel to do that is to just get every single person under his rule, every group of Vikings, every group of pirates, whatever. You're either following me or you're dead. And that's exactly what happens here, except Thorfinn is still around, because I'm assuming this is right before he leaves on his journey, and he basically saves these men's lives by giving them the opportunity to join him, to come to Vinland, to be sailors for him, to help him out to construct this new world, which is a really generous thing for Thorfinn to do, to take these people that were essentially just pirates that are just like well, we don't know how much they murdered people, but they were definitely robbing people, and they were definitely Vikings before that, so they have a history with, the war and violence and everything that Thorfinn is trying to distance himself from. But, he doesn't want this sort of, the way that Canute is doing it is not the way that he's doing it. And Canute has given him full permission to, whatever, do your thing, man. Try your way. Have fun with it. And so really it was up to the characters themselves. Did they want to die at the hands of Canute, or do they want to go with Thorfinn? And that was sort of the question that was posed to them. And the conflict came from them thinking that, well, if I go out like this in defiance and with this sense of honor, I'll go into Valhalla and I'll become a warrior in God's army. And then Atheist Thorfinn comes in and says, well, what evidence do you have that this is even really true? I mean, how do we know that they didn't just leave us, prophecies of death and destruction, and that's all they left us with, and then we're all supposed to just go with this and buy into it and just believe it? For what reason are we believing this? For what reason are we buying into this? What is this actually helping us with? How is this helping us lead our lives, And he sort of like brings the whole thing into question, and he starts talking about like destiny and fate. He's like, well, look, if this is all destined to happen and everything in life is destined to go on in one way, then what free will do we really have? Do we even have a choice in anything? He's like, don't you want to feel like you have a choice? Which I think is a really interesting concept when it comes to the idea of fate and stuff. And I don't think, Vinland Saga has ever really been a story that's meant to be about fate and destiny or things like that. But it is something interesting to call into question, and also might play into where Vinland Saga ultimately ends up, because I don't know if Yukimura is going to keep this within the realities of history, or if he's going to change the story himself. I keep saying do like an Inglourious Bastards type thing where he changes history to suit a story. I'm fine with it either way. I don't think that authors or writers need to be bound by actual history, especially when they're writing a fictional story. Even if it takes place in real historical times, I think that they should have full creative liberty to do whatever they want about it, because I still look at Vinland Saga as a fictional story. I'm not reading this to get a history lesson. It's cool when the history lessons pop up, I learn a few things, but I'm not reading it for that aspect. I'm reading it for the story of Thorfinn. And so I'm perfectly fine if he wants to change anything moving forward. But anyways, the chapter ends flashing forward, into present time, and the pirates, the original Joms Vikings, have joined Thorfinn's group, and Thorfinn asks him a question about how he sees things looking in a year or so, and he's like, I don't know, like the Norse never said anything about it, basically saying that he's sort of given up this idea of fully falling into the strict guidelines of what the Norse religions were and everything. So with that being said, I think it shows that Thorfinn has a way with words at this point, and that he's used to sort of trying to convince people to come and join his cause and to join his reasoning. And he really does it in a way where he kind of, he really has become a leader, because he looks at what each person would need to either be motivated or convinced, and not in a manipulative way, but basically using the biggest prime factor that would be in that person's mind in order to sort of bring them over into his side and try things his way, which is ultimately what he's always been trying to do ever since he began this mission. Is he's trying to solve the issues with words, with talking, with communicating, as opposed to with violence itself. So we'll see where that goes moving forward. Also in the next chapter, it says, the little preview things that says that he becomes like Thors at last. So I'm wondering if that really means that he's going to be in a situation. I mean, he already was in a situation where he dropped the knife against Garm at the end of the last arc. So that was symbolism of how he sort of reached up to his father's level, but also incorporated the lessons that Askeladd taught him. So he kind of became the best of both worlds in a way. So I'm wondering what that means for the next chapter. As well, we did not get into the natives or anything at all in this chapter. This chapter, ultimately, it really did feel like a little bit of fan service, like I said, just bringing Canute back for a chapter, which was I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But that's what it kind of felt like. So it felt like a little bit of a break, a little bit of a middle ground, and then we're going to go back into the regular storyline that we're in the next chapter. So we got to have the natives deal with the prophetic vision of the destruction of the future, and we're going to see how Thorfinn is kind of moving forward. And I'm wondering how much of like a time skip we're going to keep getting too, because we were in, I believe winter was setting in recently, so I don't know if it's going to flash forward to spring or, you know, summertime, see what's going to happen there. But anyways, I'm excited to see it. I love this series so much. I'm going to continue to review it. So thank you guys that actually like stick around and watch the Vinland Saga reviews. I know they're not nearly the most viewed videos on my channel, but I do appreciate everybody that's here that's kind of going through Vinland Saga currently with me and checking it out. So if you do like the video, if you're a fan of Vinland Saga or the reviews or anything like that, please give it a thumbs up, because that will definitely help me out. I really, really appreciate it. And leave a comment about where you see the story going and what you thought about this chapter down below as well. In the description of the video, you will also see links to my Patreon and merch store if you want to support the channel on that extra level, as well as all the social media links where you can follow me and see me post pictures of my cats. So other than that, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.